Welcome back, everyone, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. I don't want to call this an emergency episode, Jackson, because of the state of the Toronto Blue Jays, but it is getting tight in Toronto.
It is, Matt. It was a little different last week. The vibes heading into this week were very different than the vibes currently now. It's kind of what happens when your lineup kind of disappears and some things don't go your way. You look around baseball right now. There's a lot of division races that are changing rapidly. It's certainly been a fascinating thing to watch. It reminds you a little bit, I'm sure, if you're a Jays fan, you remember 1987, right? I'm sure this reminds you a little bit of that.
You beat me
But
to
yeah,
it.
lots to discuss here, Matt.
You beat me to it. That's exactly what I was about to say. But yeah, you talk about the lineup. We're going to show you some stats here on the bottom of the screen that are going to make you go, whoa. The offense has disappeared, and it's disappeared the worst time, and some of their best players aren't producing. And there's 4 games up, technically still first in the division as of the time of this recording. When this comes out, they may be a game back, but we'll see. But yeah, it starts and ends with the offense. I mean, the pitching hasn't been great either. I know Scherzer's had some struggles the last few starts, but the offense is where it begins.
Yeah, so I've got the Blue Jays OPS their last 3 weeks for our audio listeners is 622, which ranks 25th in MLB in that span, so not good enough. Now, you could argue I'm cherry picking a little bit. They did have a good first week of September, right? They had that series in Cincinnati where there were those kind of dogfights. And then that Friday night in the Bronx, they played really, really well. You know, they were passing the baton kind of, you saw the process continuing, right? But it feels like kind of, and then they had that good run against Baltimore as well that weekend. But ever since they landed in Tampa Bay, I'll show you the last 2 weeks, 617 OPS, so pretty similar. But then in the last week, the Blue Jays OPS in the last week, on base plus slugging, for those of you who don't know, is 485. Not just their on base percent, on base plus slugging. So
Yeah,
that's really bad. That's bottom 3 in MLB, and that pretty much tells the story, Matt.
The problem I'm also having isn't just the last 4 games of the season here, whether they win the division or not. It's they're going to see pitching like they've seen in this Red Sox series for the next month, depending on how far they go into the postseason. I mean, they got Giolito on Monday night or Tuesday night, sorry. Garrett Crochet last night, who they might see again in a wild card round potentially, depending on how this all shakes out. And then you see Brian Bayo tonight. So these are the types of arms that you're going to see consistently. And they've hit good pitching this year. That's again, we don't want to cherry pick just the last few weeks, but I mean everything's under the microscope this time of year. This is playoff baseball now. These last 4 games, and it's just going to get tighter as things go along.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, they hit Max Fried really well this year. They have hit some guys for sure, but it feels like, Matt, that approach that got them there to hitting those aces. Jacob deGrom comes to mind as well. That's kind of gone away. They've the battling, like I said, the passing the baton, right? Putting together good at bats, long at bats, fouling pitches off, focusing more on just getting on base. John Schneider has mentioned that in his media availabilities the last week or so, that some guys are feeling it injury-wise, but also trying to do everything, trying to be the hero. We heard that in Kansas City as well over the weekend. So, you see on your screen here, for those of you listening, their OPS the last 2 weeks have picked 3 players, kind of the heart of the order, right? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has a 552 on base plus slugging the last 2 weeks. Major league average is kind of around 700. That's kind of where you want to be. Kirk is at 395 and Barger is at 576. None of the 3 of them have been good enough, and those are the guys who are more often than not at the plate in big moments. Now, we'll see how Anthony Santander in the next, 4 games, tough runway for him, what he can do, but how much can you really expect of him? There's a lot of questions to be had about the lineup right now. And I think it'd be one thing, Matt, if they were the approach was still there. They were consistently loading the bases and just either in some cases getting jobbed by the umpire, which did happen the other night. However, they had, I think, 7 innings after that to score some runs, which they only scored 1, right? So, we can blame the umpires, which I don't think is very helpful. You can look at the rest of the season, which they have hit, but the issue, Matt, is that process and the results right now, neither of them are there.
Yeah, let's just throw out the umpire thing. That's just, I think that's ridiculous. That's just an excuse. You look at these numbers for these big 3 guys. I kind of thought Kirk would slow down before now. I've been really impressed with him. Mm-hmm. I said before the season started that I thought he needed more split time. Hopefully it's not catching up to this point, but you saw it kind of last year when he slowed down middle of the year. It looked like he was getting a little tired. He's starting to look like that to me now, and which is concerning when there's still, hopefully for Blue Jays fans, 5-6 weeks left in the season. Guerrero, I don't think Guerrero has historically, and I have to go back and check the numbers, has historically had a good Septembers. And Barger, this is kind of his first real time through a big league season, right? So, is fatigue playing in? They're not going to mention that. They're not going to say that. That's, again, another excuse. You got to find a way to win ball games. But those are three things that are kind of concerning if you're a Blue Jays fan heading into this final, 4 days and the postseason.
Yeah, and then this one here as well. Just the Blue Jays have scored 2 runs or less in 7 of the last 9 games. That kind of just tells your story right there. By and large, you want to try to get 4 or 5 runs in a game to have a chance to win. The Jays are very good this year when they score 5 or more runs. In fact, they're 68-4 on the year. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. You can look at the rotation certainly is an interesting conversation as well, which we'll get to. Max Scherzer certainly has been very good lately. There's Jose Barrios. There's a lot to discuss there. But before all that, the lineup has not been doing their job. The process hasn't been there. You have guys, like Nathan Lucas, who hit really well throughout the year, who now is, I don't want to say coming back to earth. Maybe that is the right term for it, though. You mentioned Kirk and how tired he would be, and what is his first full season as a full-time catcher. Addison Barger, he's never played this deep into a season before, right? I guess same thing with Nathan Lucas to a degree. So you'd understand that to a certain extent, but at the same time, there's not a lot of, every team has to play 162. You know what I mean? This is just how it goes. So disappointing to say the least. But I think you look at the top of the lineup, George Springer, he's not feeling the fatigue. That's for sure. Right? Bo Bichette, prior to getting hurt, he wasn't feeling the fatigue. Now, who knows what he would have done the last 2 weeks? We can't specify that. And I'm sure, by the way, we have to acknowledge that. His absence in the lineup has certainly hurt them. He's hitting behind Vlad. It certainly plays in. However, you get the big contract, you got to perform. At the risk of sounding like a Leafs fan, it's true, right? You need to perform, right? And there's a lot of Leafs fans watching the Jays right now, by the way. But it really just comes down to that. I don't care who's hitting behind you. You get the big contract, you're hitting third, man. You got to deliver. And right now, it's just not happening for Vlad. It's not happening for a lot of guys in this lineup outside of Springer. So a lot of question marks.
I mean, this is the reason why I said at the deadline they need another bat. I mean, you look at guys, the guys kind of going back to their league averages. That's what happens in this game. I don't think there's not a lot of scary in this lineup aside from Vlad and Bo. And Santander is kind of supposed to be that Barger a little bit, but he's struggling now. But there's not a lot that if you're a top pitcher, if you're a Garrett Crochet, there's not a lot in that lineup where you're like, whoa, I got to be really careful here. And home runs and good pitching can win in the playoffs, and they're just not producing anywhere near the caliber of even a playoff team at this point, obviously. But we'll see if they can turn around here over the last 4 games.
Yeah, being a bottom 5 team the last 3 weeks just isn't going to get it done when it comes to the offense, and that's why I mentioned the process, Matt, because this is the kind of team that it can't just get by on hitting a few solo shots or like the Yankees, the way they play, or the Phillies, just, hitting home runs left, right, and center. It's not how they play, right? They don't have
to string it together, and they have to play the game the right way, and they have to go first to third, and they have to steal base. They have to do all the little things properly to win games. And they've done that over the course of 150 games. But they've kind of gotten away from that, and they don't have I don't want to say they don't have the talent. They don't have the profile to just bang their way out of it. I don't think.
You look at what Stephen Kwan is doing right now, and who knows if he was even for sale, right? Cleveland obviously is the story right now. I think maybe in baseball, the way they've played lately, overtaking the Tigers in the Central. It's incredible. Imagine if they had Shane Bieber. But I think it also brings into focus. Yeah, you're right. And people did talk about the time. I believe we talked about on this show after the trade deadline. Your only addition was Ty France. What you're doing is you're trusting your guys who you got. And at the time, you could see what they were thinking. And you still do to a degree. It's a bad 2 weeks. It doesn't mean the whole season's a wreck. But we're seeing some real signs of concern here, going up against good pitching as well as not so good pitching. I'll say this, Matt. You mentioned Giolito. The other night, he looked very hittable. Okay, there were a couple errors in the field for the Sox. Yes, there was the umpire thing, but aside from that, Giolito issued, I think, 4 walks. His command was a little dicey. There was a Davis Schneider at bat against Wilson, the lefty, as well, with a couple guys on. He's swinging a pitch in the dirt. It's just things like this that are not in line with their process, and they can't win like that. They just can't, because they're not going to get bailed out by a home run, right? Vladdy is not a 40 home run hitter, right? I think right now he is, 23 or something home runs? So you're not going to get that kind of bailout. You need to have that approach. It's just not happening. So I can only imagine the frustration, by the way, on behalf of Schneider, both Schneiders, Popkins. You'd be a little mystified. How is everyone struggling like is.
You can see the frustration. You can see it in George's face and some
Yep.
of the comments he made in the dugout on Tuesday night. Kirk, I think, slammed his helmet last night. You know,
Which you never see.
John Schneider dropped an F-bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Vladdy got thrown out. Popkins got thrown out. Like this is exactly what you don't want to see in these types of situations. To be completely honest, you can say there's no panic, but like your body language is kind of showing that hey, we're a little tight. The back end's a little tight. To put it PG.
Right. No kidding. Like if you look at Vlad, like his ejection last night, I don't know what you thought of it. To me, I thought I understand the frustration. It was a borderline pitch. It was a good pitch. It wasn't even like it was 10 feet off the plate. I understand maybe the night before you're upset. Last night, he didn't have a good night anywhere. Vlad did. I didn't like his game offensively. There was a play, I think the ground ball he hit up the middle where he wasn't fully sprinting and he got thrown out by a couple steps. Those things are one thing, but Matt, he's arguing there and gets ejected on a borderline pitch. It's frankly, it's a tough look for your best player in a pennant race.
It's just not a game where you can, use excitement. If you have to be the type of player that you are. You can't be somebody that you're not. It's not like hockey where you can run around and start throwing some hits, and you have to play your game and do the things that make you successful. And stay even keel. It's 162 games. They still have 4 left in the postseason. It concerns me when you start to see this when things get tight. It's kind of some of the body language, some of the action, some of the ejections. Like that should be very concerning, I think, for Jays fans, because it's not even the postseason yet. They're in, right? They're going to get at least a wild card series. What's it going to be like then if they're down 1-0 in the wild card series and things start to get a little tight? It's just not what you want to see. And I like emotion. I'm not saying don't show emotion, but they're showing emotion that you don't typically see. You don't usually see emotion from Kirk. You don't usually see Springer's a veteran. Why is he, talking about if they want to give it? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense to me. And it seems, again, they look tight and they look like they're white knuckling it up there, and that's not what you want.
Even, you see it throughout the lineup with guys. Popkins, as well, as I mentioned, he was upset. He's kind of been the belle of the ball, David Popkins, this year from a coaching standpoint. And now, I'm not saying one way or the other, but your team has 3 hits, no runs. It's been a tough stretch, and you're getting tossed, and you're frustrated too. It's also not a great look. And maybe that's more him backing his guys and stuff. I get it.
And
but
the game can just change on such a 3-0 lead. How many times do you see that turn into a 3-2, and then you're right back in the ball? Blooping a blast, and you're right back in the ball game, and the Rogers Center's rocking, and now you got some of that momentum, if that's what you believe in. Like, I just, I don't know. It's just it's a bad look, I think,
especially with this team.
For a team that it could win, it could have the best record in the American League still at the end of the day.
All the comebacks they've had this year, and we've heard all year, we've seen it and heard about how they really get along well. They're all happy. All the vibes are good. Well, it's easy for the vibes to be good when you're winning and atop the division, right? What happens now, right? So, a lot to be said there. It's interesting, Matt, as maybe we transition to the pitching side now, how at the start of the year, or the start of the month rather, it was the bullpen was in the crosshairs, right? All of a sudden, bullpen has kind of quieted things down, is kind of seeing a little more guys slotting in. And now the starting rotation, and sort of some of the depth is coming into question. It's interesting how quickly things can change in baseball in the span of 2 or 3 weeks.
That's the 6 month of baseball. This rotation, this is concerning because, and the biggest thing I think is, does Kevin Gausman start Sunday?
I know.
If this is tough, because if they need a win, or win and they win the division, or win and the Yankees lost and they win the division, that takes him out for the wild card round, right? He's not going to pitch Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Does he start? What do you do in that situation? Because, like you said, it's looking thin. Scherzer hasn't been good. Barrios is now in the bullpen. Bassett won't be back for the wild card round. I don't think he can come off the IL till the DS. So you're looking at Bieber, Gausman, Savage, and
Scherzer.
And Scherzer, yeah, those are your 4 guys. And if Gausman's gone, then you're starting Scherzer and your Savage in at least one of those games.
Here's the thing, too. If you're in that spot where on Sunday, let's say if you win, you get the division, but if you lose and the Yankees win, they get the division or whatever, and it doesn't go your way, and you pitch Gausman, boy, you're in a tough spot, right? Because now you're hosting, let's say it's Boston, and it's Scherzer, who they've just seen this week, who they had a great first inning off of. Who, by the way, Scherzer has a 10.20 ERA in September for those tracking at home. So you don't feel great about starting him in a playoff game, to be honest. Trey Savage, this would be his This will be his third start this weekend in the bigs. So you'll be looking
Well,
at a fourth career start in
I'll
a
tell you right now,
huge start for him.
if Gosman starts Sunday, it's Scherzer starting game one because
Yeah,
Bieber starts Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday's only 3 days rest. So it's Scherzer starting game one if they start Gosman on Sunday.
that's a
Or
huge decision for them to make.
and then you got to go, I guess Bieber game two, and
Mhm.
you Savage game three, and
Yeah,
see what. And not to mention they're bullpen gaming it tonight in game three against the Red Sox,
no
which
kidding.
is. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, but it's like how did they get here so quickly? They were just talking about a 6-man rotation a month
Yeah.
ago, and how they're gonna these things work themselves out. Well, now they need to work out the other way.
Jose Barrios is an interesting one too, because you move him to the bullpen. By all accounts, he was not happy about that. He wanted to make his 32 starts again this year. Probably not going to have the opportunity to do that. But now you might have to turn to him and say, hey, we might need some innings here. But Matt, what do you think about them using Barrios last night? If it was a bullpen game tonight, why not just do a kind of like a Barrios with a piggyback or an opener type thing? Maybe you go with Varland still, who's supposed to start tonight, but then you could have Barrios, say, give you 2 through 5 or something. It's an interesting call. It was last night. We'll see what they do tonight. They really need this. They really, really need this. So it's a tough time to be saying bullpen game,
My,
among other
my
things.
my initial thought was why would they throw Barrios when it was a bullpen game today? But I was listening to Dan Shulman today on the radio, and he made the point that maybe they think they can piece it together better than what Barrios can give them right now.
Sure.
I mean, maybe one inning from each guy, and he sees maybe 6 or 7 guys. That might be the better option at this point. I mean, they would know better than us,
Yeah.
where Barrios is at and where stuff's at and how it's playing at this point in the year. So I don't necessarily disagree with it, but definitely my initial reaction was like, why would you? Because then that just that just puts more innings on a bullpen going into the weekend, which is going to be it's going to be critical at this point, even if they win tonight and the Yankees lose.
And what a season for Trey Savage, hey? From beginning to end. He started in Dunedin, and now he may very well pitch in a game 2 or 3 of a wild card series. And if they are able to still hold on here and win the division, he's probably pitching in the divisional series. Well, he is, but whether he's starting a game or he's coming out of the bullpen and kind of a bulk role, we'll see. But what a season for him. And crazy, crazy. Matt, I was just thinking too about Eric Lauer as well. That's another guy who they moved to the bullpen. It seems like he is in the bullpen now, and actually is a bit more of a short spurt guy. But tonight you could have Lauer go a couple innings. But I wonder how they see him and how they could use him in the playoffs as well. Maybe in an early situation where they need a lefty. But that also depends on who you're playing. What if you're playing the Yankees in the ALDS if you get there? And you got a bunch of lefties in that lineup. You've got obviously the short porch in Yankee Stadium. There's a lot of different things to think about and how they're going to orchestrate this. But yeah, all of a sudden, their pitching depth looks real thin. Max Scherzer hasn't helped them there, right? He looks really not good right now. He looks probably like you don't want to pitch him in an important game at the moment, right? It really does look like, Matt, that they have 2 starters they really trust in Gosman and Bieber. And after that, you've got the kid in Savage, who, yeah, you trust to a degree, but he's never, I think the most he's thrown this year, I was listening to at the letters, I think is 90 pitches. So he's only going to give you in a playoff game, he's only going to give you 3 or 4 innings at most, right? So
yeah, I don't know what, because it's not like a lot of teams will overwork their bullpens in the playoffs. That's just how it works. I mean, we've seen it over and over again. But
you have off days and stuff.
The Jays don't really have. Does that make you feel good as a Jays fan? Like, this isn't exactly a lights out bullpen that you're rolling out studs one after the next, right? Like, it's when you go out and get you went out and got Shane Bieber and this rotation depth to have rotation depth, and now Bassett may be back in the division round division series if they get there, but this has turned into a really concerning time when what looked like they had the division wrapped up 7 days ago. I think they were 5 games up.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast things can change, and it speaks to just how important being able to consistently play throughout the whole season is. You think also too, you can look at it this way: they coughed up a lot of games there in late August, early September with the bullpen and going through their stuff. Imagine if they had just been able to bank a couple more wins, right? How different things would be now. But you didn't, so you're here now. The point is, and Schneider hit the nail on the head last night with a number of expletive inserted, but the sky is not falling, and that if the season ended today, or I guess last night, they would still win the division. Today is Thursday, September 25th, by the way. So we'll see how things go tonight with the third game against Boston. But it's easy to say that the old "if I told you" game. I've seen that a lot. Well, if I told you in April or May that they'd be in the spot, you'd take it. It's like, well, sure. But like if I told you in August or after that Canada Day series against the Yankees or in a variety of other portions of the season, if I told you the trade deadline you'd be in this spot with only 2 starters you really trust right now, I don't know if you'd take that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the whole we would take this at the beginning of the year that erases about 6 months of history. That's vital to making that
No kidding.
assumption. Um, but there is something to be said. There's teams that have really struggled with this first round bye.
Yeah.
It's happened. I mean, but saying that, every team will sign up for that bye.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's not important, but they're still in. Man, would another wild card round exit really look bad on this organization? The way things have gone.
You got to find a way to win a game, and especially with Bichette's injury, Matt. Like if you can give him any extra day is huge. Now, I was listening at the letters. Like I said, it sounds like for sure he wouldn't be back for a wild card series. He hasn't even started running yet. But do you have a shot to get him on your DS roster? Maybe as a DH. Like now, still it's pretty bleak. But at least if you were able to get a bye, you could, the guys who are quote unquote banged up, right? Like Ernie Clement and Kirk and these guys, they could get a little rest. And then you could line up your rotation. You'd get Chris Bassett back. Like, there's some things there that there's a lot of positives to draw on. If you ask Blue Jays front office right now, they'd take it in a heartbeat, no question. At the same time, though, Matt.
Like you said, just the rotation. Sorry to interrupt you, but just the rotation. I mean, you go Bieber, Guzman, Savage, and Bassett all back to the division. Yeah. That gives you a chance. That kind of erases this whole pitching question if that were to happen.
With Jose Barrios and Eric Lauer ready to go if one of those guys blows up, right? Like you have a lot of different options there if you get there. And it would likely be, it'd be one of the Yankees or the Red Sox, and you'd be hosting that or hosting the first 2 games, so you'd control a lot of things there, right? Whereas if you're playing the wild card game, you have no rest. You're playing against Boston, who is kind of beating your brakes off these last 2 games.
You need Crochet in one of those games.
Right, exactly. You got Crochet in one of those games who's going to be tough. He looked amazing yesterday, and the Jays had no answer. And again, the at-bats, the body language didn't look great, and it's going to be tough. That'd be a really, really – they have Aroldis Chapman, who's been electric this year, right? Like there's Boston, they don't have a lot of depth, but they do have some stars. They got some playoff experience. Like they're a solid team who's getting base hits right now, and – I don't want to face them in the wild card. You would not want to face this team in the wild card. You don't want to have to deal with a wild card and anything that can happen because, as we've seen in the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. era, they've played in 3 wild card series against the Rays in 2020, out in 2 games against Seattle. We all remember how that ended, and then against Minnesota in 2023, which was such a horrible series to watch. Of course, I still remember vividly Vladdy getting thrown out at second with the bases loaded and Bichette at the plate. Of course, there was the Barrios pull. Remember that? Or Barrios got pulled for Kikuchi. It was the whole thing. How about just avoid a tiny 3-game sample size and get yourself some rest into the DS? Like everyone wants that. And along with the fact that you could win your first division title since 2015, which does matter still.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about it. People still talk about that 2015 division title, right? It is important. People still talk about every division title that they've won in the franchise's history. It's not the most important thing. It's how many World Series banners you can hang. But I mean, it's still, still a nice feather in the cap. And get to that 5-game series. That kind of gives you a little more room to play with, and you kind of see less variability, I guess you could say. But this is fun, isn't it? Just stepping back out of the Blue Jays lens. This is what you want to see for baseball at this time of year. I mean, you got the Jays and the Yankees battling out. You got the Guardians and the Tigers battling it out. I mean, it's good stuff. The NL wildcard race is tight. You got the Diamondbacks and Reds breathing down the neck of the Mets. I mean, this is what you want to see this time of year. Sometimes you get this time of year and a lot of stuff's locked up. That's not the case this year. So I encourage fans to sit back and relax and enjoy this exciting baseball that we're going to see over the next 4 days and obviously throughout October.
If you're a Jays fan, you're in the playoffs no matter what, right? That is nice. You will get to see postseason baseball. It's just a matter of when it'll be and who against. It's exciting either way, Matt, as you said. And last year we didn't have a whole lot to talk about this time, right? If you're a Jays fan, so certainly improved. Now, if you are a Tigers fan or a Jays fan, you're certainly not feeling good right now. But not all hope is lost, right? All of a sudden, if the Jays win tonight, Yankees lose, things change again pretty quickly.
Hey, but shout out to Kate Smith and Eric Sabrowski, friends of the show with the
Yeah.
Guardians. They're doing some big things. That 15.5 game lead, the biggest in Major League history, to erase if they win this division. So that's pretty exciting.
Crazy. What a great story that is. And what a like you said, a fun time of year. You've got everything that's happened in the West too, like Seattle, what a story they are. Cal Raleigh with his 60th home run. It's incredible. It's good for baseball, that's for sure. Is these races being tight at the end. And also, Matt, what's also good for baseball as we kind of wrap things up is a team like Cleveland, who sold at the deadline, or kind of sold at the deadline, looked like they were dead in the water with the gambling stuff as well. That a couple of the pitchers were off for. All of a sudden, they're right back in the mix. Now they're leading their division. Like you're never out of it in baseball. I've seen it in the last few years. You can be a seller at the deadline and still make the playoffs and maybe even win a division. It's incredible.
That's why we love this game, and hopefully we ended there on a little bit more of a positive note than what we started and what we kind of talked about. But there's still 4 games left, maybe 3 by the time you hear this. So, sit back, I try to relax and enjoy the rest of the way. We'll be back next week to preview whichever playoff series the Jays are playing in, whether the wild card or the division series. Until then, though, take care.